get over to our all right. Well, we are live. Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Wait a minute here. I'm trying to get the actual thing up so I can see comments and whatnot. YouTube Studio.
Give my product placement, my caffeine of choice. It's definitely Pepsi this morning.
I am drinking SodaStream. We stopped buying Pepsi, and we picked up a SodaStream machine. And honestly, it tastes just the same as regular soda, and it's a lot cheaper.
Skepticism face.
I like it, man. It
Good,
tastes, and you can control how sweet it is by how much syrup you pour in. So why can't I?
good morning to all. Good afternoon to most of you. The choice of heretics? Oh man.
There
Oh
we go.
man.
No. Well, no, it's definitely not the choice of heretics because yeah, it's the choice of champions, and I've got it here in my Star Wars cup.
Not a
So
coffee drinker.
I am not a
Well,
coffee drinker either.
so I hope all of you are doing well today. This is going to be a new format for us. It's a little bit earlier in the morning. I will say it's earlier in the morning for me than Alex, so forgive the the morning face because I literally like rolled out of bed and I was
It's
like, oh,
it's 8 a.m.
snooze,
for Bob.
snooze, snooze.
It's 9 a.m. for me, but we wanted to do a stream that was like at least reasonable for, United States folks, and not something because a lot of times lately we've been streaming, in the evening on like Friday nights, which is like the middle of the night for our European friends. So yeah, so we wanted to do something, uh, a little different. So this is going to be a regular stream. We're going to do this every third Sunday of the month. It's called Caffeine and Crusade. The point of this is really just to connect with you guys, talk about what's going on in Black Templars current events, 40K current events. Um, ran off 1 a.m. and down under. Yeah, but you never sleep anyway. Don't you work overnights? Don't give me that. So really we kind of realized that we talk a lot on our Discord, but not everybody's on our Discord. We have like more than 3 times the amount of subscribers than we do Discord members. So we wanted a chance to connect with everyone else. And I think having a regular stream is important for that. And it'll just give us a chance to just kind of hang out. We don't have any, we have a topic, obviously. Our topic today is what's the meta now, but that doesn't mean that we have to stick to that. We're going to stream for a couple hours, answer your questions, and just talk about Black Templar stuff. So, yes, I realize this is not actually the third Sunday of January, but the first being on a Sunday screwed us up. So, when we conceived of this, we were like, wait, that'd be next weekend. I don't think we should do that.
Not
So,
enough notice
yeah,
for
exactly.
ourselves. So
Yeah, exactly. So, technically, this is the fourth Sunday, but going forward, it'll be the third Sunday. So, um, yeah.
Bob has scheduling control.
Yeah, yeah. So do I. uh, wife and kids say no to some things. So yeah, uh, I guess on topic, Bob, what do you think the meta is now? Nids and Harleys used to be on top. They both got punched in the gut, both with points and rules changes and whatnot. It seems like every time Nids are like, "Oh, this is a good build. We're gonna do this." GW's like, "Nope, I'm gonna nerf that." Nope. Like first it was Leviathan, then they nerfed that. Then like, "Oh, spore mines. Yeah, we're gonna do lots of spore mines." Nope, we're nerfing that.
Yeah, I think the Nids are gonna find themselves on the shelf for the majority of players. They
which
just
is
took.
unfortunate because I like Nids. I think they're cool. Um, but they were way overpowered, but GW just keeps nerfing them. Even though I think they were in an okay spot, um, you know, uh, currently. So
Yeah, I think they took one too many nerfs. That's gonna be like the straw that broke that camel's back, or
yeah,
whatever 40k related animal you want to use. But broke the Carnifex's back.
broke the Carnifex's back. Nice,
So
exactly.
yeah, the tournament players I think are gonna shift away from them. And the same thing with the Harlequins. I've seen a few battle reports with the new Harlequins. I mean, they're still as deadly as they were, but they can't take a punch now. Um, with that 5+ invulnerable save instead of the 4+.
Yeah,
So
that's a
if
big
they can,
nerf.
it's pretty big.
Yeah,
What we're gonna see an absolute metric ton of is Space Marine players
Iron
again.
Hands.
So you're gonna see Iron Hands. You're gonna also see a lot of different varieties of uh, Dark Angels, whether it be Ravenwing or Deathwing. Both varieties are going to be very prevalent, I think. Uh, Everyone busting out their Deathwing armies and their Iron Hands.
Hmm.
Another one that's going to be really big, and I think a lot of the tournament players, Harlequin players, and the Nid players are going to be going to is going to be the Imperial Guard. So
Yep.
that codex is extremely powerful,
Yep.
extremely powerful.
I've
So
heard a lot of complaints from guard players online that crying about the indirect nerf, the indirect that they don't get the indirect, ignore the indirect nerfs. And to be honest, like I know that's like artillery is like guards kind of thing, right? But number one, the codex is powerful enough as it is. It doesn't need that buff. And number two, the other thing that I think is it's not fun for the other player when you have a tank that's in the back corner like a basilisk or something like that or a manticore that's in the back corner of your opponent's deployment zone and you have basically no way to get to it. For some armies can, but some armies just have no way to get to that unit and it's just going to pound you all game with high strength, high AP, high damage shots. That's not fun, right? So there should be a penalty to that. And it's not like the basilisks and the manticores and whatever are like, super fragile. They're tough 7. They have 11 wounds. They move 10 inches. You can draw line of sight with those. That doesn't make those tanks useless. So I think there needs to be, maybe is it a little too harsh? Maybe, but um, you know, shooting out of line of sight should be a bonus, not its primary mode of fire, in my opinion. Um,
yeah,
real quick though, Bob, before I let you give your thoughts on that, Grand Enforcer super chat, thank you so much. He says that is a great idea for those of us who don't do Discord or any other social media platforms. Keep up the great works. So thank you. We appreciate that. So, what are
yeah,
your thoughts on
definitely.
that as far as the indirect fire, Bob?
Indirect fire, they need to have it because the I'm not so worried about the vehicle based out of line of sight stuff, although it can be strong. What I'm worried about is the thousands of mortar teams, heavy mortar teams, that are sitting in the back of the deployment zone you can't
Yeah,
see because you can hide them very easily,
yeah, because they're tiny.
and and they will just rock your world.
Yeah,
So That's the big thing I'm worried about, especially with like born soldiers.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and fortunately, the nice thing about the indirect fire nerf is one, the to hit modifier is a ballistic skill modifier. It is not a -1 to hit. So I mean, for us, it's kind of irrelevant because we're going to be taking up hold most of the time. But um, for other armies, if they're shooting through dense, that's actually -2 to hit. Or if we have Phobos units and we pop smoke, that's essentially -2 to hit without being -2 to hit. So you can really nerf that, shooting ability. And then the other nice thing about it is the bonus to armor save is not. They could have easily been like, you get light cover. Well, we would have been screwed by that, but it's not. It's just a flat +1 to your armor save. So
yeah, yeah, it would have been a huge damper to Phobos-based lists that want to conceal position because all they have to do is just sit in the back of their corner and start launching their indirect,
yep,
and that would really, really not be good for 5-man uh,
exactly.
Phobos team. So I'm okay with them getting the nerf. Um,
Broad says so. We're
also,
gonna need some anti-tank in our lists. Probably,
yes, yes.
probably,
So
yes.
there's going to be two different varieties of Imperial Guard. You're going to be the born soldiers, although vehicle-based lists are going to still be born soldiers, I would imagine. But
Turns out
there's going
auto
to be
wounding on sixes is pretty damn good, no matter what
yeah,
you are.
yeah. So it'll be infantry based, or you're going to see a lot of vehicles with them, and tank commanders are ridiculous. So you're going to see those the Dorn battle tank, I think is what it's called. Those are
Yeah,
really good. Um, you're going to get Lehman Russes are super cheap, really effective uh, with their battle cannons now. So they have a lot of good uh, high strength, high damage weaponry that we're going to need to be able to at least deal with. So even a lot of my lists that I do with a lot of MSU trade style lists, I've had to include more anti tank in it because I don't like that matchup with like Iron Hands and such without just a little bit more uh, anti tank. Eradicators are a good place for it, and that's what
yeah.
I opted to go for, especially with strategic reserves.
Yeah, Eradicators definitely are absolutely still good. They got free heavy melta. We were already taking heavy melta anyway because it was just flat out better mathematically, even when you move, which is silly to me that would be the case. But now that it's free, you're absolutely going to take heavy melta. So basically, the unit that we were taking just got cheaper, and they're just as deadly. Now you can include a multi melta for free. Um, the multi melta is interesting. I think uh, technically, obviously, its shots aren't as powerful as the heavy melta, but you do get four of them because you're, shooting twice.
Yep.
So that evens it out. And honestly, like having a multi melta or two in the squad like that, if you're taking a 6-man squad and combat squatting or whatever you want to do, um, the extra dice helps even out bad dice,
Yeah.
which helps. Um, Randolph asks thoughts on the new Dorn tank. I'm pulling it up right now because I can't remember its stats, but I do remember it being pretty damn good if I
Yeah,
remember
it's got a
correctly.
lot of guns for the price.
Yeah.
I don't remember its points, but I was looking at it. It's got a decent weapon for its. I think your Imperial Guard players are gonna take at least one of them.
Oh yeah. It's 14 power, so what is that? About 280 points, something like
Yeah,
that.
250, 260.
Yeah. Um, it's tough 9 with 17 wounds. That's important because that means that it can hide behind obscuring and get dense cover and all the other stuff. 2 up save, which is just, ridiculous. Um, it's equipped with a castigator, Gatling cannon, a heavy stubber, and a twin battle cannon. So the Gatling is essentially a heavy 12 24-inch heavy bolter. Well, no, not a heavy, but heavy flamer, I guess. Sort of. It's strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. But it's 12 shots. Okay. It has a coax autocannon, which I
It's the
think
other one.
is that. I think that's okay, that's if you take the oppressor cannon, you get the coax autocannon. The what's it equipped with? Twin battle cannon. Twin battle cannon is heavy 2d6, strength 8, AP 3, 3 damage, blast turret weapon.
Yep.
It's really good. And then you can swap out the twin battle cannon with an oppressor cannon and the coax. What's the oppressor cannon? Honestly, I think I like that better. Heavy D6 plus 3, strength 10, AP 3, damage 4, and it's blast with a turret weapon. That's a little less shots, but strength 10 and damage 4 is nice. That's a tough call between them because then you also get the coaxial autocannon added in there too, just for good measure. So,
Yeah,
it's good.
It's a dangerous
It's good.
vehicle.
It looks cool too.
Yeah, it's our namesake, as mentioned by the major here.
Yeah.
How can it not be good? It's got Dorn
How
on
can
it.
it not be good? Yeah. The major also says going to an event next weekend, running a unit of 10 Reavers, 160 points for deep striking. Turn off OBSEC is pretty good. I said this to Bob. I think Reavers are a solid pick now. I don't know if I'd run a 10-man, but you know, maybe 2 5-mans. Maybe take a 10-man and with the option of combat squad. I don't know. I think they have some play because they're very, very cheap. They ignore vertical terrain. They deep strike. They have good strats, even if one of them's really expensive. So yeah, I think they're an interesting unit worth looking at now. They're no longer the butt of jokes.
Yeah, you
They're
just
not
have to
gonna
make sure.
they're not gonna kill anything in combat, but whatever, except guardsmen. But
Well,
that's fine.
they have a good pistol, so they're going to do a bunch of
Have a good
damage on the
pistol.
way in. You can turn them to OBSEC, so that's good
Yep.
if
Strength
you
and condition.
need to. And you can also turn off OBSEC if you're within range. So it's got a bunch of utility. I would say some people would argue doing the Phobos or the Reaver Lieutenant on that instead. I don't know if I buy into that. It can be a good take.
You got to protect him though, because he's a squishy
Yeah,
character. That's
he's
the only
very
trouble.
squishy. He doesn't strike or deep strike like the other Reavers can. So you have to get him there. He
Yeah.
does provide a lieutenant reroll, which is
Yeah.
nice because we
He's
have very
not
few
he's
places
not
for that.
without
But
his benefits. He can't deep strike though.
yeah,
The other Phobos one deep strikes. I don't know what I don't know what happened with those lieutenants, but their rules are all backwards. So it's like one of them is like a incursor infiltrator style guy,
mm-hmm.
but can't conceal position. Instead, he deep strikes, and then the Reaver one can't deep strike. It's just bizarre. It's like they think that that's a case of they made the model. They're like, cool, make us some 2 Phobos lieutenant guys, and they made the models, and they're like, "Oh, I guess make rules for them now. Well, but this dude is they're backwards. It's like, don't care. Just make the rules. Stupid.
Yeah,
So,
I laugh because Argonaut says I feel like Reavers would be a great way to take out chaos cultists hanging out smoking cigarettes.
yeah.
I could
I
laugh
mean,
at that one.
they'll kill chaff.
Yeah.
They have, a lot of attacks. There's just no AP on them, which sucks. Their pistols have good AP. Weirdly, why do their pistols have AP 2 and their knives have nothing? That makes no sense to me. So,
Mm,
I don't know. I think they're worth a look.
yeah.
The major, let us know how that goes because we want to know how that worked out for you.
And it's kind of been funny. I've been talking about Reavers for a long time about how their utility is really good. And Alex is always like, no. And now they're pointed to go. So
Yeah. Also, I'd like
not
to point out, speaking of units that used to be terrible, scouts. So my biggest complaint, scouts do suck. Let's put that out there. They suck. They're not going to do anything other than sit on an objective with concealed positions. Those are the two biggest benefits for 60 points. I don't think we have elite slot issues anymore. And we haven't actually in a long time, in my opinion. We haven't really been like maxing out on elite slots. But especially with the new character things, like running 7 elites is not difficult. Um, from a stat wise perspective, scouts are pretty terrible. However, my biggest complaint was that they cost more than Votan Kin and are worse. Well, that's no longer the case. Votan Kin went up again, so they're 13 points a model, and scouts are 12. So, so yeah, so I or yes, yeah, they're 12. So uh, I've rescinded some of my hatred of scouts. I actually put them in a list because I needed I was out of points and I couldn't I'd have to drop like Fist of Balthus and the Holy Orb off of 2 units in order to get eliminators, and I really wasn't even super keen on eliminators because they they have their camo cloaks are useless now for us most of the time. So so anyway,
Neophyte Bubble List is coming back out. I'm telling you.
yeah. I mean, they're a cheap 60-point infiltrating unit. They're not.
Just
They're not.
unfortunate.
They're just unfortunately 1 wound and 4 up save. So, um, with
So
very,
I can take
you get a free heavy bolter missile launcher though.
yes, you take my old list because I actually, I was playing some games a while back, and I had a little folder with all of my stuff. I was playing Mordheim for those that know what that is. With some friends, and I opened up my folder and it had old army builder printouts in there. I'm like, oh my gosh! I'm like, I wonder what I was running way back then. And I had a list. It was my neophyte bubble list is what I called it, and it was like back when scouts were troops. So I had like 6 units of troops with scouts and land speeder storms, and like a bunch of land speeders. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually run this list again. They're decent,
Yeah,
sort of.
sort of. Argonaut
They're not troops anymore.
asks, would you put them in a land speeder storm? I don't think so, because then you're wasting their concealed positions, which is probably the main reason you're taking them. Um, the land speeder storm really got nerfed by the dedicated transport rule because running them empty was great, but like scouts don't need it. They have concealed positions, and that's really what I want them for. If I'm taking them, it's because I want to plunk a cheap unit on an objective in a trade list or something like that, and make my opponent waste time killing a 60-point unit. So, um, Shadizzo says, "What do you guys think of taking Bobby G now? 12-inch reroll once to hit, bubble, and a +1 advance and charge. Not to mention he's a beast stick." Here's my problem with Bobby G: is yeah, we don't lose rules for doing it because of the new FAQ for arcs, which is nice. But honestly, he's like what 300 something points, and all we get out of him is his combat capability and a you know +1 to advance and charge. We don't
And the
really
reroll
need,
ones.
huh? Yeah,
And the reroll ones.
but I'm about to compare him to Helbrecht, who's 140 points, has also a reroll bubble of ones. It's only 6 inches, but Helbrecht's also on a huge fat base, so he's probably on the same size base as
Yeah, they're on the
as
same size
so,
base.
so it's not as big, but honestly, I think Helbrecht is way better for the points, and he um, he provides a +1 strength bonus, which is huge. He has chapter master rerolls, and we have other ways to get. We have rerolls to charge. I don't think that the +1 to we have Canticles of Hate. If you really wanted to get into the weeds, you could, in theory, do Crusader or Frontline Commander, but um, honestly, I don't think he brings anything to the table for us that's worth spending his points on. That's just
Don't
my
get
thought.
me wrong. I've always wanted to take a Primarch in my list, but for the
Not the
points
Ultra
investment,
Marines one.
well, it don't even matter, honestly. He's cool.
He is
I can
cool.
do it. He, he's a cool model. I love the lore behind it, but I don't think we get enough for the points investment on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna kill something in close combat, but the things that you really want a Primarch to kill in close combat, he doesn't kill.
Yep.
Like
And instead, he gets pasted in return because he has no wound cap.
yeah,
Like
like
Abaddon smokes
Bellicor,
him.
Abaddon,
Bellicor
yeah.
smokes him. The Nightbringer smokes him.
So
Um, so yeah. Which Michael asks, what's the best way to deal with the Silent King and the Nightbringer? So the Silent King, we're taking all that anti-tank stuff now. We're taking more of it anyway. Um, you'll probably have better luck shooting him, or meleeing him, or whittling him down some and then meleeing him. Um, Honestly, the Silent King is one of those models like Mortarion. You can potentially screen him off of where he wants to be and ignore him and win on objectives. The Nightbringer's a different story. We got to be a little because he will murder stuff. But the thing that he doesn't ignore is transhuman. So you can gain some durability there. Um, and you really just got to make sure you take your 3 wounds off him as many phases as you can, and hurt him that way. Put incursors in front of him, and maybe get 2 to 3 mortal wounds on him. So he didn't have anything to save mortal wounds, and that's a different phase. That's a charge phase, so you could theoretically get that. So that's how I would deal with him.
yeah, and the games that like I've handily beaten the Necrons with the Silent King and versus the ones that have been a lot more close. Uh, I ignore them honestly. If it's incidental damage, I'll send it his way. I get nothing else to shoot really, but it's screening. Play the game the way you want. He's you have to dedicate too much to him to really eliminate him right off the bat, and I think that's going to hurt you in the long run
Yeah.
when you're facing the Necrons. And when I've done that, it's it leaves a little bit too much on the board for them because I'm not able to deal with them. And the same thing with the Nightbringer. He doesn't kill that much
Mm.
to really worry about that. Yeah, he's going to eat a unit a turn, but when you have 17 on the board,
Well, and if I remember correctly, he needs to use his smash attack in order to ignore invuls. He'll always ignore feel no pains, but the uh, the sweep attack uh, doesn't doesn't ignore uh, invuls. So you put a huge squad of crusaders in front of him, and he's not going to kill them. He only has 6 attacks. Um, so if he smashes you with his sweep attack, you're going to get your invul save, and if he doesn't, at most he's going to kill 6 guys, probably less because he's not going to wound you on 3s or on 2s rather, because he is like strength 14 with that attack.
I would
Um,
say if you know that you're going to be playing them every single time, and if you don't really have any other opponent, Blade Guard are the bane of his existence. The Nightbringer
yeah.
uh, with Transhuman and the Apothecary, um, they will he will be dramatically less effective and be tied up. So that would be a good change. Normally I wouldn't say build your list for a particular opponent, but some people only play a couple different people, and that would be a good counter for them. Blade Guard veterans, couple
Yep.
units, 5 mans.
I'm always taking some kind of psyker defense because the armies that my friends play that I play against most, almost all of them have psychers, and a lot of them sometimes. So I need that psychic defense. Um, Scrolling back here, Revenant had a good question. In your opinion, what is the best list archetype for us in arcs? Trading, Black Tide, Dread, Heavy Vehicle for Codex Warfare. Trading lists are going to be excellent as they were previously.
Mhm.
The best part about trading lists is we now, yes, we're more squishy, but whatever. We now have more points for more units to trade with. So
Yeah,
yeah, so that's really good right there. I think infantry heavy black tide style lists are going to be viable. I think it's going to be very easy to plunk 60, 70 models on the table and be competitive and swarm the board with stuff that's going to be hard for your opponent to kill because we have an invul and transhuman and that stuff. So, um, I think that's definitely.
mm,
I think we can go vehicle-ish heavy. I mean, we're going to be taking impulsors. Um, my thing is, I don't think Codex Warfare is going to be good for us. Um, and yeah, the only benefit we get to heavy weapons is we get free multi meltas on our vehicles. Um, That's it. We don't get any buffs to make them more reliable or more deadly, like some chapters do, like Iron Hands, or Imperial Fists. So relying on Codex Warfare is not going to be our bread and butter, I don't think.
yeah. I would agree mostly with that as far as Cork Warfare, but now that we don't have to change our doctrines, honestly, yes, we get an additional -1 in like tactical and assault, but I'm kind of the opinion is like, do we really need to change doctrines? I mean, would it hurt us to just sit in Devastator doctrine? I don't think it really would.
No,
It's nice to
no,
be
I
in
don't.
tactical doctrine, but
Yeah, I think honestly, staying in Devastator or Tactical Doctrine, depending on what your guns look like, in your list, is honestly fine because number one, of all the free war gear we're getting, um, there's our melee is already got lots of AP for the most part. Probably the two weakest AP things are going to be either well, three
Thunderhammers.
really: Thunderhammers and Lightning Claws and Chainswords.
Yeah,
And I mean, if we also have a relic, the Crusader Helm, to put somebody in Assault Doctrine, which is pretty cool. We also have Fervent Acclamation to give somebody AAC. So, uh, we have ways of doing that if we want to focus on staying in Dev Doctrine. And, but things like Power Swords are already AP3. Since Armor of Contempt is gone, we don't really need to. AP3 is pretty much going to, take care of most everybody. Even what you call it, um, power armor is only saving on sixes. So um, I think um, I think we could stay in Dev Doctrine most of the game. I don't think multi meltas need any more AP, but like if you're running other heavy guns that are low AP, one or two, getting that extra pip of AP from them could be worth it. So
yeah. So to answer the final answer of your question is if you take that philosophy and you build your list towards heavy weapons, I think you could do Codex Warfare on it now, but it's going to be a really skewed list on it. So yeah, that's the answer is you can get away with it. I don't think we need to move from Devastator if you don't want to. So there's
yeah,
that. But uh, Atanis says, "Is a list that you post with the Sword Brethren still valid?" I assume you're talking about my MSU trade list on that, and for the most part, it is the core of it is staying the same. I've switched a few things out. Simply
It gained 300 points.
500 in like
Well,
64.
kind of. If you took it as it was and just plugged it in to the new thing, it gained 300 points. If you then add on all the additional stuff, the free stuff for that we weren't taking, yeah, it's like 500 points. It's kind of insane. It's kind of funny too. Bob and I went in two completely different directions with that list. I had already modified it anyway because I didn't like the Inquisitor because fluff reasons. Um, so I had already taken him out and added storm shields to my van vets because I wasn't ripping off storm shields. I was tired of having to change my stored breath or my Vanguard vets loadout. And I had already glued on all my storm shields, and I felt like they needed them anyway, all throughout Nephilim. So now I'm looking pretty because I don't have to re-glue storm shields back onto van vets. So there's that. But also, uh, what happened when the points dropped is Bob swapped some things out and added different units. I literally just took the list and added like 300 points of stuff. So yeah, it's
Yeah, there's been some changes to it.
mhm.
Excuse me.
I actually ran the
Uh,
list against my friend Eric on Tabletop Simulator in a battle report that I'm gonna be editing pretty soon, and I really liked it. Um, so I think I added an Invictor, and what else did I add? I can't remember. Oh, a Gladiator Valiant is what I added to the list. Um, so for my 300-ish points.
I
Let's
think one
see.
of the big things about like this new meta is with Space Marines and us specifically is we're not locked into a build. So I've been playing MSU lists for years and years and years. So I'm really good at using them, and I tend to stay away from the bulkier lists. So you'll kind of see that I'm a little bit biased in that. But I do play them. I do play Vehicle Heavy. I do play some of those other lists as well. But I think they've got legs now. We've got the durability pieces on the board, whether it be 5+ or Grimaldus to give us that durability, or Crux Obsidian, or
hmm
uh, Icon of Heinemann to be able to give us that durability for our pieces, or a million Crusader squads for dirtball cheap. I
Yep.
mean, we've got the tools. Uphold, honestly, is huge. Aurelian Shroud. We don't ever no one ever talks about the Aurelian Shroud, but that's gonna be huge for infantry base lists. We got a lot of tools. I take what I say with MSU because my belief is MSU trades probably the best, but I haven't had the reps with infantry heavy list to be able to say, okay, this is the best list ever. I'm sure I could make it work and
I think there
get some
isn't
good games.
necessarily a best list archetyped
Yeah,
for us. I think we can run with multiple different. Like we can run with take and hold infantry heavy blocks of infantry style lists. We can win with trade lists. We can make a hybrid list of the two. We can run more vehicles than we were before. I think there's going to be multiple valid archetypes with Black Templars that people are going to see success with. So
yeah.
um, Randolph asks, "Are Black Templars scared of the upcoming World Eaters release?"
No.
No, they're scary in melee, but they don't have a way to ignore invols, so we're always going to be saving on something. Um, and I mean, again, if you're running Crusaders, congratulations, you killed a few of my 15-point neophytes.
Yeah,
Who
we're not
cares?
afraid of that.
No.
Um, yeah, it's the same thing with the Space Marines, the Chaos Space Marines when they came out and their uh, melee focused stuff that they could do.
Yeah.
Forgive me,
Honestly, even Angron isn't that scary. Like people are, getting their panties in a twist over, 33 attacks or whatever, but they're damage one. Like I did the math yesterday. He kills 3 Terminators. That's it. Three of our Terminators in a hold, I should say.
It's gonna be impossible to kill, but is gonna be a zillion points. So
Whatever. He kills 3 Terminators. If we have Divine Protection or Grimaldus nearby, even less. It's like two. And then an Apothecary raises one of those. Congratulations. You killed a 33-point Terminator. Good job, Angron. And it's even
so
less. It's even worse if he's using his smash attack because he has less attacks. Yeah, it'll kill. Each one will kill a Terminator outright, but whatever. So, um, so yeah. There was
there's a few things. You guys are
there's,
actually chatting. I have to like check.
I know
So I
we're gonna
appreciate
look
that.
look through here.
Daniel Johnson, new to BT. Welcome to the Eternal Crusade. Absolutely love the lore and can't wait to play. Bought the starter box. Can you guys give me a decent 1,000 point list for the meta? Okay, so honestly, because of basically what I just said, you're really gonna there's no best list. You kind of want to find out what you like the best. I would start at 500 points. Play with that. We're actually going to be doing a 500 point list, and we're going to be able to build off of that to you can get more units. Um, if it was me, I would start building an MSU type of thing because of my bias. I like playing the MSU, but other people like the Primaris Crusader Squad, or maybe they want to do Impulsors, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I can't give you a catch-all list for 1,000 points. That's going to be the best or a great way to start because it's really going to be based on your preferences.
Yeah.
So if you got a
There's
preference,
there's more than one way to skin a Crusader.
yeah,
Um,
so like you're like, hey, if this is what I like to play, then we could kind of give you some ideas on where to function on that to get you to the next step. But Army Box is a great place to start.
Yeah,
The
the bemoaned combat patrol box, which originally we didn't think was so hot, is now looking quite good. You get a Crusader squad in it, which is really cheap now. They're just as good as before, except they're 20 points cheaper. And you get an Impulsor, which are amazing. You get a Captain model and some regular Intercessor dudes, and you get the upgrade kit. So you're getting the multi-melta in there too for your Impulsor. Combat Patrol is a fantastic box set to start with. Um, Valentin says, "Hey there, a little bit late. Are Assault Marines still worth it? I used to take 2x5 for the free weapons, but now that the whole army gets free war gear, they seem to be kind of meh again." No, I think they're fine. They are 90 points for a jump pack unit that can shoot up the board. They're going to be good in a trade list because, especially if you pair them with something more deadly like Vanguard Vets or Terminators or whatnot, they can help sweep up, any infantry, light infantry off of an objective. Their core, so you can give them what do you call it? Strength of conviction, and again, it's another unit that your opponent has to force you off an objective. So I think they're definitely worth taking. I like the Flamers. Also note that the Sergeant's War Gear is now all free, so you can give him a Thunder Hammer and a Combat Shield and a Plasma Pistol. Why not?
yep.
So, um, Chris Berry asks, "Does the Crusaders Helm keep a unit in Assault Doctrine for the whole game?" No. It is one turn till the start of your next command phase. So one battle round essentially, and then you pick a new unit or the
Yep.
same unit if you want. Um, so yeah.
Let's see here. Let's go to the next one. Any advice for a starting player? Okay, so I would say, like I mentioned, I would pick up the Army Box if you can find it. It's kind of funny because Games Workshop was so scared of all of these Army Box releases that they were selling out, so they made zillions of them. They
You
sold
can still
a
find
lot
them.
of them right away. So they according to my source, they made a lot of money off of them when that initial release was out there. But every store had like 12 boxes of them, So they were sitting out there, and then you could find them on Amazon for like $80 for a while.
Yeah.
And then we had the balance update like in November, early December. And then people were starting to snap up those boxes because things were starting to get good. And they've slowly crept up to like 140 again, uh, American dollars on Amazon. So it's still discounted from the original 210 that I paid and I bought 3 boxes of.
I know, right?
But so that would be a great place to start if you got them. But the biggest thing is to my advice for a new player is don't fall into the trap that I got into and many, many other people have gotten into in buying too much stuff initially and not knowing where to go with it. So I've seen massive, massive amounts of people selling armies. It doesn't not just Black Templars, but in general. Uh, Buy enough to start and play games. Use Eternal War rules, which is the rulebook rules for match play. Don't necessarily worry about the Arcs Omen GT tournament stuff. Get some games in, smaller points values. Learn what is fun to you. Honestly, 500 points is not going to get you a ton of stuff. It's going to get you 4 or 5 units on the board, but you can use most of the rules in the codex, especially now that everything is free for
Yeah.
upgrades. Play against a few different things, and then you'll be able to find out what you like. Whether it's
Yeah.
going to be MSU or Horde style, and just kind of build up from there and try and paint it as you are building up. You
Don't
don't
be
want a
me
huge
with
amount
the
in there.
closet full of unpainted miniatures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I see a lot of new players would be like, "What's a good 2K list to start with?" If you're just getting started, don't worry about 2,000 points. Number one, the game is super complex, and piloting a 2,000 point army, especially now with all the points drops, is pretty challenging if you're just getting into the game. Especially if like you don't have 40K prior experience. Like if you're a 40K player and you're just getting into Black Templars, okay, you probably already got some experience with that. But if you're a new player altogether, don't try to jump into a huge game like that. Start at 500 points. Um, Learn the mechanics of the basic mechanics of the game. Find out what units, play style you like, and build up from there. It's a lot easier to master the game starting when you have like 4 or 5 units on the table versus 15.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing against people who already play 40K because they've already mastered their 2,000 point list.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I understand the desire. I mean, my personality trait is I want to know what I'm building to. So, like, for example, I got Fukari. I still haven't played him. I've had him for like since Codex release. I have never played a game with him. But I bought the models to build a 2 point or a 2,000 point list. So I understand the desire, but the learning curve starting at the higher points list, you have to put a lot of reps in. And I'll be honest with you, you're probably going to lose a lot. And if you don't mind that, okay, that's fine. But it takes a certain personality to be able to lose a lot of games while you're learning and what to do with that army while you are doing it. And you have to stick with it. You got to pick your list, find out the list that you're good, that is supposedly good for you, and play a lot of games with it. The thing with Black Templars is it's a high skill cap army. So we don't have a lot of things that are just like auto take and just use point and click. Like for example, Iron Hands. Now that they got rules, it doesn't take a lot of brain power or skill to just shoot things and shoot it well. Honestly, we are a finesse army. We have a lot of tools that make us good, but we have to know how to use them, like devout push stratagems,
mhm,
Emperor's Will, what vow to take, that type of
yep.
thing against different armies.
The
So
vowel at least part got a little easier.
yeah, a little bit, but the the fact still remains. You have to learn and have experience with the list. So you're going to be playing a lot of games with a lot of different types of opponents before you can understand that that net list to be able to be
Yeah.
sufficiently good at. So that's why I say start little, play games with it, and build up. So that way you can at least understand what each unit does and how to implement them and whether or not you like its play style. I know that
Yep.
was a very long-winded answer to that question, but
Yeah. Bubba has a rules question I'd like to answer for him. Does commanding oratory and/or bombastic delivery allow you to chant a litany that the chaplain doesn't know? The answer is no, it doesn't, and here's the reason. All it does is it tells you that you automatically recite a litany. So, how do you recite a litany? For that, you have to go to the chaplain's entry, which specifically says. In your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, it can recite one litany it knows and has not already been recited by a friendly model. So no. Um, it also, anytime the absence of a rule, this is something that a lot of players get caught up on. The absence of an ability or rule saying you can't do something doesn't give you permission to say you can. A good example of this is um, deep strike, or I guess technically death from above, or teleport strike, or well, all of us old people call it deep strike because that's what it used to be called. In any case, let's say you have terminators, and it says at the end of one of your movement phases you can come down. So people say, well, can I come in turn one? And the answer is no, because the mission rules say you can never arrive on turn one. You need specific permission to override that, like
yep.
the drop pods have or the Falcons have. Regardless of what mission rules say, you can come in on turn one. It's the same thing with this. Just because it doesn't say that you can't uh, recite one you don't know doesn't mean you can. You have to have permission to recite one that you don't know. And there are other abilities that are like this, usually psychers. There are some psychers that are have an ability where they can use a psychic power that they don't know or didn't have at the start of the game, and it will specifically say that. So hopefully that will settle it for your play group. Um, let's see what else we got. Um, the Major asks, "What are your thoughts on taking a Phobos Captain with Master Marksman and Witchseeker bolts?" Bob actually has a Phobos Captain with Witchseekers in his in one of his versions. I can't keep track of all of your lists, Bob. One of his newer lists has a Phobos Captain. I don't think the Master Marksman is worth it
No.
because the gun is only strength 4. But Witchseekers definitely, because all you need to do is hit, and he hits on a 2-up. So on a 2-up, they just take D3 mortal wounds. If the gun does any damage, it's a bonus. So
Yep, that's the key. Being able to conceal position him to where you need to get the
he's also
line of
got a
sight.
12-inch bubble of deny, deep
Yep.
strike, important.
So earlier I saw like what's a good list. You'll be seeing it very soon. My iteration. A lot of people won't like it because it's lacking a certain unit or two. But I think it'll be the best iteration of my style list. But it does have a Phobos captain, and I think it's with the way that the meta is going. Um, not as much as far as Zerker armies, but there's some really dangerous ones out there.
hmm
Sorcerers. You're probably going to see some,
Stupid
uh,
farseers.
yeah, Farseers. A ton of different units. Demons have them. Thousand Suns, obviously. You might even start seeing them in the Imperial Guard lists because it's a decent, cheap unit to get some psychic powers out there. So this is a good way to toss a D3 damage on it right away.
Yep.
And if it goes through, there's another 3 runes. You might kill that character right off the bat. So plus it gives you the reroll ones, which I think is really valuable in a concealed position. You don't want to obviously throw it in harm's way right away.
Right.
Um,
Here
and
I
you're
am
not
on
going
the
to get the
center
benefit of the
objective.
conceal.
You don't want
Yeah.
that. But
Uh,
yeah, I think I've always thought that they were an interesting take. I've just never really been able to fit them in the list. And now that captains are cheap, I think he's how much is he? 85.
85 points. Yep.
That's That's cheap, and we can take 4 HQ if you want. So you could run, you can run Helbrecht with him if you want. Plus his model is cool. He's got that Captain Sidonis or Sergeant Sidonis look from the Space Marine game, with the beard and everything. I like that. Um,
Or he could be the only HQ you
or he could, yeah, right. For shame, Bob. Um,
have.
Vincent says just recently began running Templars. Love the Crusader squads and our named characters, but also love dreads. What's your take on multiple different dreads or adding the perhaps a free blade knight? Um, Adding knights just got easier because now we don't have to pay CP for them anymore, which was my biggest problem with them. I'm still a purist. I like to run pure Black Templar, but adding a free blade is definitely a solid addition. I think the armigers are probably a better take than a single big knight, because you get more of them and they have a ton of good shots, and so they're smaller and they're easier to hide. But as far as dreadnoughts, I think Redemptors are still solid. Um, the other dreadnoughts, the only one I would probably really consider is an Ironclad. Vendreads kind of look appealing, but they just don't have enough guns. Versus like an Ironclad is like a decent 135 point uh, distraction carnifex, and its core, so it benefits. Like if you're taking Grimaldus, he can D3 plus 3 advance as he charges up the board. And I think that could be something that's interesting to do. But otherwise, it's pretty much still just Redemptors. Um, we don't benefit from Relic Contemptors the way other like armies like Iron Hands do. Um, but they're still decent. You're still paying a CP for them, which is stupid. I hate that rule. Um, but honestly, and Bob and I were talking about this in another video, an upcoming video, that the Redemptor, I think, because we're running plasma from like Inceptors or Hellblasters or Melta in other places, we're getting our anti-tank from other places. I think to maybe keep some heat off of Redemptors is take the Gatling instead. Um, a lot of the weapons on the um, Redemptor are heavy, so that would synergize with staying in Dev Doctrine. And it also, the Gatling synergizes with the more infantry-based guns of the other one, and maybe it'll get a less attention if it doesn't have the plasma. I haven't tested that yet though, so yeah. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, in general, the regular box dreadnoughts I think need 2 to 3 more guns on them to make them uh,
Yeah,
more worthwhile. Honestly, I hate that that's my answer because I love dreadnoughts, but
yeah, me too. I even have the Forge World Black Templar one in resin. So
um, but the free braid knights, it's a definitely a cool take. I think it with the second that you take one though, it shifts you potentially into casual list because a single knight is very easy to kill. So I would say the armigers are probably the better option. So you get a ton of damage 3 from them. You can take up to 3 of them, I believe.
yeah,
But they're not buffed by anything in the Imperial Knight Codex because they don't have their buddy big knights to give them buffs. So that's something to think about, and you're not gonna be able to buff them in any way. So they're just added tough vehicles in the list, but armatures are really good. So, but I get wanting to take one because their
they're
knights are
cool.
cool.
Knights are cool.
So
Bob, this is a great question for you. Lost Templar asks, returning player from fourth to sixth edition. How many reps do you usually get with a list before you start making changes?
I probably play 4 or 5 games before I change it. As you get more experienced with a list, like for example, I keep on referencing my list because the list I've been playing for 5 6 months now. My MSU trade list. So I can make list changes to it. Like I'll make iterations of it, and I'll be okay. Maybe I'm gonna play this, and then I'll change my mind and I'll change to something else. It's because I've played literally dozens and dozens of games with it. I have the experience to draw back on and say, okay, I know this is not going to work. I don't like it. I can make changes to it with a game or two or even none. They're like, nah, I don't like that. Just because I've had the experience with it. But I would play 4 or 5 games with a list if it's a new style for you and you haven't got a lot of reps with it. That would 4 or 5 games, see how it plays, then you can start making wholesale changes. Now, I'm not talking like, okay, maybe I'm gonna take lightning claws on my Terminator squad instead of Thunderhammers. That's not the kind of change I'm talking. I'm like, okay, we're taking the Terminators out and we're putting in aggressors or something to that effect. So big changes are 4 or 5 games. I would say like think of it like a tournament. You're gonna go through a tournament. You got your list. If you're playing a 3 game list, by the end of it, you're gonna be like, okay, I know this doesn't work, so I have to change it. And you can't change the list in between games, right?
Yep.
So that's what I would kind of take it as. Pretend you're going through a tournament and play it, and then you'll see what works, what doesn't work, and then you can make a more informed decision on what you're changing. Because I feel like most people change things after their 1 game. Oh, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, there's RNG. Well, not RNG technically, but it's
I mean,
randomness. It's
yeah.
chance. So
Gotta pray to
something may not.
RNGesus.
The RNG of your hand.
Yeah, exactly. So
So
yeah, I mean, like for example, I played my new version of Bob's old trade list with the Gladiator Valiant, and it died fairly early on, but that's because my opponent focused fire on it, and I didn't kill a ton with it because I whiffed on my shots. So you could react with, boy, it's terrible, I'm taking it out, but I don't think it is. I think he shot a lot of stuff at it, which means he wasn't shooting my impulsors or my other units. And so it was a good just distraction card effects in that. And I just flubbed my rolls with it. Like if I had rolled better, I would have murdered a whole unit of Skyrunners. Uh, so um, so yeah, it's just a matter of you got to get some reps in it to try to even out the randomness of dice rolls and things like that.
yeah,
Which
and this.
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it. His That question kind of leads into another question. So if you want to finish your thought there.
Yeah, I think speaking of dice rolls, it's a good time to talk about our implausible nature dice, which are still have stock of on baronofdice.com. Here they are right here. Let's see if we can get the camera to. Oh my God, it's not. There you go. You can kind of see it. The Discord thing is like making the thing go, but I love them. They're square corner. They're very easy to read. The square corner is important. It makes it roll more evenly. And you know, if you use a discount code IN40K, you get a discount on your dice. While supporting us at the same time, I'm gonna pop a link to the dice in the chat here, and then you guys can get some of your own implausible nature dice. We are going to be doing at some point this year. I'm not sure quite when, but we are going to be doing a couple, maybe one or two, at least limited run dice where we're going to make a batch of 1,000, and once they're gone forever. So it'll
Yep.
be really cool. We're going to come up with some new designs working with our partner at Baron of Dice. So check on over. And he's got a ton of other dice. So if you play other armies, check out those dice as well. Um, so, um, so yeah. In any case, Bob, you had somewhere else you wanted to go with.
Yeah, we were talking about like making changes to lists and stuff. It kind of led into Daniel asking, "Are sword bros worth it? I love the model, but I just don't see feeling being worth it. So the reason why that kind of connects is I wanted to try and make them work, and that was one of the units that I took into one of my lists early on. Uh, early iterations that I talked about in my MSU list, I had Blade Guard Veteran, and it just didn't play the way I felt it. It wasn't as smooth. I mean, they worked in impulsors, it was fine. They killed things, it was fine, but it was just fine. You know,
Yeah.
it didn't feel right to me. I had lots of games, and I switched them to Primary Sword Brethren, and it all clicked. So, and that was before they got free War Gear.
Yeah. Now
And a
they're
lot of people,
amazing.
I've been, we've been kind of talking about on the channel, like, are they good? Are they not good? And Alex, admittedly, is more high on them than I was. I was like, okay, they have good qualities in certain types of lists. You know, he would send me a list. I'm like, I don't really care for it. You know, it's not my thing. But, oh, excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat this morning. So I resolved myself to like, okay, you know, before I'm gonna be like one way or the other, because I was kind of like in the middle. You know, I want to make sure I make an informed decision and speak from a place of experience before I am giving advice on a media like this. You know, a lot of people take our advice as what it is and go from that. So I wanted to play games with them. I know everyone else was like, no, 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 no. But I'm like, okay. But they're saying it from their chair at
Yeah.
home and not actually getting a game. That was us originally. So in theory, you know, they could be good, could not be good because Blade Guard have better traits, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. Their role is different. So I played with him. I've gotten like 35, 40 games in with Sword Brethren in impulsors, and they work. Don't lock them. You have to put them in impulsors to make them really effective unless you have a ton of bodies already on the board. They might work if you have a ton of bodies in large units
Yeah. If
already.
you have large other high threat units like a block of Terminators, a block of Centurions, big blobs of Crusaders, you know, they could probably work walking. Um, Here's the other thing too is like we thought they were good beforehand. Bob had good experiences with them before the points drops. Now they're 220 points a unit for 10 man with two Thunderhammers, two double lightning claws, four pyre pistols, two plasma pistols. You can take two power axes if you want, and
Or
the rest
malls.
I would never take them all. Um, and an axe. There's a case for an axe. And the rest power swords for 220 points. They ignore the passion of the vow. Like they're just so ridiculous. And the other cool thing about it is if you're gonna run them like two squads in impulsors, always take a 10 man. And the reason is if you don't, if you're taking a 5 man, then you're stuck with the 1 per 5 man rule. But if you take a 10 man, you can combat squad them however you like. So you can
Mhm.
put both Thunderhammers in one thing and both Lightning Claws in another. Which I do in my current list. I put the Lightning Claws and I think the Plasma Pistols um, into the one with Helbert because the Lightning Claws benefit most from his +1 strength, and then the Judiciar and the Thunderhammers go in the other one. So yeah, so they're absolutely worth it, and they're really good in impulsors because uh, it gives them the extra layer of protection that people claim that Blade Guard have over them. Um, but
Yep.
yeah, fantastic unit. I
Yeah.
can't wait to get mine painted up.
Yeah. They trade up exceptionally well,
Hmm.
especially for the points that they are now. It's kind of funny. Everyone's like, "Oh, no one's been talking about this." I'm like, "Yes,
Yeah,
we have."
Art of War said I watched their tier list, Marine tier list of like most improved units, and Sword Brothers, and specifically Black Templar and Pulsars were on there, which I thought was great. But they were like, They're like, has anybody been talking about Sword Brethren? I don't think anybody's talked about Sword Brethren. And I'm like, we have. We talked about them the day after the points drop. We were gushing
Yeah,
on them on our live stream. Like, come on.
I mean,
So,
like I said, you need to. Everyone needs to have experience with the unit before they make rush judgments. You can
yeah.
be an armor-chair general all you want, but I
You
mean, it
got to put
doesn't
it up,
really have.
got to put it into practice.
I mean, I read Reddit or go on to Discord, one of the Discords of the Black Templars, and I see a lot of advice. I'm like, in practice, that doesn't work. You
Yeah.
know, my now keep in mind your meta may differ from my meta, but I typically will base my advice on what is out there in a tournament scene. Um, the American tournament scene, I should say, because
Yeah.
our European brethren play a little bit differently than typically the American meta is. But in general, that's what I'm basing on it because I want to be able to go to LVO and be successful, or I want to be Nova Open and be successful. That's what I base it off of, and that's who I pick my opponents for. Like I want to be playing hard opponents. I'm not playing uh, more casual lists. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I want the best challenge. I want someone to put their foot on my neck and tell me like, okay, this is what's going to be going on, and I want to find a way to get out of that and win. That's 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 how I find enjoyment. I want to get crushed until the very last moment and win a game. That's how I find enjoyment out of the game. So that's what I base my advice on. So knowing that, take all of my advice based on that. So I don't give you advice out of nothing. I play a lot of games. So
Yeah.
now if I
I'm
could only get any of them on camera.
I'm trying to get more games in. That's something that I've definitely lacked is the number of games being played because even though I have friends, locally that I play with, where none of us are super close to each other, so like it's generally like half a day to like get a game in, and that's challenging when you have a family, and we do things on the weekend, we do things during the week. My daughter has events all throughout the week, so in light of that, I've convinced Bob to play Tabletop Simulator. so,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna try and play more Tabletop Simulator games, and I'm gonna try to record them. Like I said earlier, I uh, I played a game and recorded it, and we just I'm trying to figure out. I've never edited a battle report like that, so I want to see how fast I can edit it and down into something that's manageable. Like I don't think people are gonna be interested in watching 3+ hours of content at once. Maybe if it were a live streaming or something, but you know, uh, not if it's just a recorded thing. I want it to be an hour or less of edited down content because that's a lot more digestible, I think. So I'm working on that. Um, Hopefully that'll be something that becomes a regular thing for us as well as battle reports. Um, so um, so yeah. Um, Dylan
Let's see.
asks about we have great special characters, but would like to know your opinions on the strong generic Primaris, Marshal, and Chaplain builds. If helpful for context in a Primaris Black Tide list. So for Black Tide, if you want to run a second Chaplain, I think the generic ones are fine if you either want like a different litany or a different tree on him. But honestly, Grimaldus and Helbrecht are generally speaking, or Black Tide is generally speaking where those two really shine because Grimaldus gives a fat feel no pain bubble, a huge advance bubble. Helbrecht gives a pretty large reroll ones and +1 strength bubble, which helps those units. You can affect multiple units with it. I think where Grimaldus is tough in an MSU list because he's a 4 character or 4 model character unit, so he takes up a lot of space on the board, and he can be easier to pick off that way as far as like getting to him, because you also want to have him spread out so that he affects multiple things. But I think in a smaller, more MSU style list is where you actually want to run those generic characters over our special characters. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Like the larger Black Tide list are there's huge boons for the special characters, but you can get away with not running them. It's not going to be obviously as effective because of those buffs are just like
Really good.
astronomical. But you can get away with it. There's a lot of different chaplain loadouts that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Primaris chaplain on bikes
Mm-hmm.
are effective. You could take the firstborn, the jump troops a pick there, but I know that you're going for Primaris.
The jump
If
pack
it's
chaplain.
yeah. So that basically was a cost effective version of the biker chaplain
Well, he has
for
fly too, which helps, and he can deep
yeah.
strike. So
So the biker chaplain for you probably would be a good take there. You can if you grab the walking one. It's an economical wave. He's going to be walking behind all these uh, black tide units anyway, whether it be the Crusader squads or Sword Brethren or Terminators. So they can have the walking one that'll be effective in that list in lieu of Grimaldus. As far as the captains, that's a little bit more of a dicey pick. So I typically don't take captains unless it's uh, Helbrecht, with the exception of my Phobos captain uh, that I've been using recently with the Witchseeker bolts. But you could take some options. There's the captains have like a lot. Was it like 10 different weapon options
yeah,
that can take? So
I like
there's a
the
lot
auto
of.
flamer and the power sword.
I
It's very
don't
Black
like the
Templars.
Gravis versions because
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with your foot slogging stuff. So I would opt away from that. But any of the other ones will be good for you because they'll be able to keep with your troops and
I don't
give you the
think the
reroll ones.
chapter master upgrade is worth it on the generic captain, because then you're only about 20 points off from taking Helbrecht, who is just much, much better. So I would shy away from the chapter master upgrade on that. The Master of Sanctity upgrade on a generic chaplain, though, is definitely, if you don't have Grimaldus, find points for that because it's worth it. So
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll
Johnny,
move on
Johnny
for
says
another.
every minute you cut is a minute we lose watching you.
I
Trust me.
mean, is that a good thing?
Yeah, I know, right?
Well,
So
it's
yeah,
kind of funny though because like Alex and I will be prepping for our calls, and we have like so much amazing like conversation and discussion about things, and then when we get to it, and then we're like, oh, we forgot to talk about that.
yeah,
It's like, oh, come on, we just put the recording on the second we sit down,
we probably
and
should.
then cut it out.
Infamous says you were talking about combat squatting the Sword Brethren earlier. Don't you choose to do that after transports or reserves are declared? No, actually. Um,
Question.
a good question. Let me. I will pull up the FAQ and read it to you. The the way the wording is, it used to be. Um, it used to be that it was implied that you had to declare transports before you did that. However, in the core rulebook FAQ, which I'm pulling up right now, it says there's a huge block of thing that says at the start of, during, and after deployment. Um, these terms are commonly used in many rules. We wanted to clarify when each of these happens in the mission sequences that appear in mission packs, such as open hostility, eternal war, etc. At the start of deployment, a rule that happens at the start of deployment is resolved at the start of the declare transports and reserve step of that sequence. Combat squads, see Codex Space Marines is an example of such a rule. Um, then it it goes on to say during deployment. Um, a rule that happens during deployment can happen anytime between the declare transports and reserve step at the end of the deploy armies step. Um, so yeah, that also includes teleport strike and concealed positions. So yeah, so you can combat squad and then put a dude in a transport. Um, you can also combat squad and then put dudes in deep strike or strategic reserves.
Yep. The too
So
long don't read version of that is steps 10 through 12 are basically interchangeable.
yeah, pretty much. So so yeah, which is nice because it allows us to do things like put combat squad and sword bros into reserves.
Yep. And that's an important piece. Like the list wouldn't work otherwise.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
it would work. You just have to take
theoretically,
two
you just have to
squads.
deploy them on the table and then jump them in, but
Yeah.
that's annoying.
Note, it would still work if you did that, even though you have to have a unit in the transport to start with. In those lists that we were talking about, we have character support in there as well. So, which brings up another interesting point that I've thought about, and it's in that list. If you're running Helbricht, and maybe you have Eradicators or I don't know something that you want to give the chapter master rerolls to, you can just put Helbricht right behind that impulsor and have him order someone with his chapter master rerolls and then jump in and drive off. So that's a thing you can do too.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fun things that we have. It's an exciting time for us. I think I've nailed down my MSU list. I've got a couple different versions. Um, my biggest thing is, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, is we're gonna have to add some anti-vehicle in our list. So that was my biggest thing because I really only had a couple units that were really focused on that. And my last version that we posted up on YouTube was uh, the Terminators with Chain Fists. Now they have no longer in the list. I've opted for the Assault Terminators with Thunderhammers, but
But Bob, I'm
that was
building
just
my
not enough.
relic terminators right now. What am I supposed to
They're
do?
still not bad. They're still not bad. So don't say that you have to take them out because they're still not bad. I like the utility of the a dirtball 33-point Thunderhammer.
I
So
like I like being able to drop in and shoot something. That's why
yes,
I like the relics. Plus, chain fists are going to be mean against. The chain fists are much better than thunderhammers against vehicles. It's the same flat 3 damage, same strength 8, but it's AP 4. That's a huge difference. So in our
why
vehicle
not?
upcoming vehicle heavy, why not both? Yeah, you could. You could. I am running 2 squads, so I could run one thunderhammers, one whatnot relics. But um, yeah,
I'm
honestly,
too OCD for that.
I like symmetry in a
Yeah.
list. I don't mind having a one-off unit if it feels right. Like a gladiator, like the gladiator in my list is just one, but it feels right because I have 2 impulsors and a gladiator, right? Does that make sense? Same thing with like the Invictor that's in it. It's one Invictor, but that's fine because I have 3 Phobos units. Um, I don't like uh, stuff where it's just like there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. Like it doesn't. I don't know. I need to have symmetry. The list also has 2 Van Vet squads, 2 Relic Terminator squads, 2 Sword Brethren squads.
It's kind of
So
funny
yeah.
because like when I go to tournaments, there was a local tournament that was here, and one of the prizes was the spam list, the most spam, and every time I always won that stupid can of spam, like because I'm so OCD. It has to be the same unit. So that's one of the reasons why I build like that is because I like redundancy, so I don't
Yeah.
use them. But
It sounds like the solution is more Terminators. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you can't go wrong with more Terminators. Do we prefer a big 10-man brick of Assault Terminators or 2 units of Mix and Match? So it depends on your list. Um, if you're going for more trade style, then you want the smaller units because you can have multiple units to threaten deep strike. I think deep striking Terminators is a thing that we should be doing now. They get a free teleport homer, which is nice. Well, not the relics, but the other ones. And the other cool thing about having the smaller units is you can pressure your opponent to either force you or like force them to stay in their deployment zone or keep units in their deployment zone to screen out your Terminators. Or if they don't, you're deep striking in their backfield with Terminators. Okay. So yeah, and they're cheap enough that if they force you to deploy midboard or in your or even further back with your Terminators, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Especially if you're running assaults where you can just be like, all right, cool. Well, you've done a great job screening me out, so I'm gonna put him here in my deployment zone, and then next turn I'm gonna plunk him down next to my character with the teleport homer. So
So one thing to note on that I do have to give some clarifications. One of the reasons why I took out my relic terminators is because we are going to be going into what I have lovingly dubbed the infiltrator meta. But there's a lot of armies that can do it now. The Imperial Guard, I believe, have the ability to screen out 12 inches on deep strike pretty much wholesale. So you have to be really careful on your army. Make sure you ask your opponent if they have the ability to screen out 12 inches because there's a lot of armies that can actually do it.
yeah,
They just haven't been doing it, but you're going to see it a lot more because of the free strategic reserves. So it's something you need to know ahead of time if you're not familiar with your opponent's army, if you're playing a random or not. So, and if you're playing a Space Marine opponent, expect to see infiltrators, at least one unit
yeah,
for them. So that makes the deep strike a little bit more fishy. But I mean, against the right opponent, it's still very valid to push that threat.
yep,
You just have to know who you're playing.
yep. As far as running a big block, I think in a take and hold Black Tide style list, yeah, run a big block. I'd put either Grimaldus or an Apothecary with him. Just make them really annoying. Hold the center with Thoths, and you'd be good to go.
Might be harder to take ults with a big block though, because they're pretty big based and
Yeah,
10-man to get in there.
yeah,
It'll be
that's
hard
true.
to do that, but they'll clear anything you want. And
Hmm.
if you keep them in that 10-man, you have the option to comment squad them if you need to. So
Yep, yep. So,
yes, it is coming back. It was kind of funny. Last night I was talking to my wife. I'm like, you know that guy I was telling you about? Because I've mentioned you a couple times. Like, yeah, he knows the Pope. And she's like, that's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, he told me that I have to grow back my beard and you don't get a choice in that. And he's like, I don't like him anymore.
that's funny. All right. What else we got here?
Yeah, we'll be on for another about half hour or so. So feel free to throw your questions at us.
I'm just scrolling back through the chat, see if there's anything that we missed. Grand Enforcer says, hopefully the new Brutalis Dreadnought will work for us. Well, um, I don't know. Unless they now I when I saw it, it was very early playtest. Hopefully it's changed since then because if not, um, well, I don't know. Maybe if it gets free war gear, it'll be worth it. It was just lacking compared to the Redemptor at that time. So we'll see. Um, a lot's going to depend on points.
Yeah, if
And
it's pointed well, it could be legitimate.
yeah,
especially in a potential dreadnought heavy list that we can pull off.
Yeah.
So
Infamous says, been told the GCR is kind of useless when we have the Holy Orb. Here's the thing: the Holy Orb is a once per game thing. So, and the Holy Orb is great. It causes mortal wounds independently of whether the fights last. So if you whiff on your 2 up to cause mortal wounds, they still fight last. They're completely independent abilities with that. But the Holy Orb is once per game, and it triggers in your shooting phase. So if something charges you, you're out of luck. A Judiciar works all game long, and if they charge you, you can use Oathkeeper on him, which I highly recommend, to move him up and not engage. Heroic Intervention does not require you to engage, just that you move closer. Get him in range, make that unit fight last. So um, I absolutely don't think that the Holy Orb makes him useless. Why? Where's the little GIF of the girl from the commercial? Why not both?
yeah, but a lot of the in like I use Emperor Champion and the Judicar with the Oathkeeper to be able to get that heroic intervention, and then the Emperor Champion was with my Sword Brethren squad with the Holy Orb to get the strike last. So that worked out really well for me. One of my newer iterations of that list has two uh, Judicars, but I don't have Oathkeeper on them, so they're not as effective. But it's still great. I think the utility of that unit is amazing. Yeah, the Holy Orb is nice. You can throw it on even something else that's a little bit faster on it, but um, both are really good, honestly. And Fights Last is a critical ability for many units that you don't want to be just like blasted off the board. I mean,
Yeah,
it's turned so many games I can't even say. And whether you decide to, if you don't have the points for a character to get him in there, and you only have 15 points, sure, it's only 15 points, and maybe that's that turn, that critical moment that you need to get that elite unit off the board, do enough damage to it so it doesn't hurt you or whatever it might be. So I don't ever think that's a bad take. So
yeah. The
uh,
Major asked in the video about secondaries the other day. I don't think you covered behind enemy lines. What are your thoughts on that? So originally we did talk about it, and I cut it out. And the reason I cut it out is because while I was editing it, I was thinking about it. Um, it's okay. Uh, Reavers can do it. You drop in on turn 2. Um, here's the thing with it though, and I this is why I cut it out after I thought about it. Is if you're playing a savvy opponent, you're not deep striking in their deployment zone. It's just not going to happen. They're going to screen you out. Um, Especially if you take that and you're like, I got 2 units of Reavers in deep strike reserve. Cool. What are your secondaries? Behind enemy lines. Well, you're not getting that. It's just not going to be as useful for us. I think that it makes it. It's not bad. It's certainly easier to get than it was before, but it's not going to be better than the other options that we talked about on the video. So yeah. Kevin, heavy Hellblaster or heavy intercessors? Well, those are two very different units. Hellblasters are grossly better than heavy intercessors. I don't. I think heavy intercessors are okay. They got cheaper, but honestly, if I'm taking a backfield objective unit, I'm taking infiltrators because they're going to screen better. I don't need except for Primaris Crusader squads, I don't really need my troops to kill anything. And you're paying for guns that are mediocre at best. That's
yeah,
just my 2 cents. I don't know what you think, Bob.
Harvester is okay. They compete with the Inceptors. Obviously, they're just not as fast, but
Not as
they're
fast. They don't.
perfectly reasonable.
They don't have as much firepower, but they do have the advantage of they look so much better than those ugly ass models.
I can get around. But they're cheaper than they were before, but the problem is everything else in the troop slot got so much more cheap and
Yeah.
has so much more utility. So I just can't, unless you specifically want them for like cool factor or whatever that you want them for.
Or your
They're
Imperial Fists or Iron Hands or something.
yeah, like
But even then, I wouldn't
uh,
take more than a squad or two.
I
So
mean they're reasonably durable, so there's that. But like you compare them to infiltrators that have the free Helix Gauntlet, and you can smoke screen them, transhuman, all that stuff. It balances out. They hold in anyway, so there's that. Um, what Dawkins says, Blade Guard seemed the best pick still for Impulsor. So here's the thing: Blade Guard veteran are still okay in Impulsors. I've played with both many games with versus the Sword Brethren. So you can still use them. There, if you don't want to use Sword Brethren, that's fine. They're still fine. The Blade Guard in the Impulsors, you can get a reasonably uh, kill unit up there real quick. In past editions, that was actually one of our best combos. Was uh, the GCR with in the Blade Guard veteran in Impulsor, and we can get that first turn charge with the way that Devout
Devout
Push
Push,
worked, right?
the fake charge.
But the thing about them is, after the points adjustments, Assault Terminators with Thunderhammers are strictly better than they are for less points, more damage, um, more durable than them. So there's that. Two, if you're putting the Blade Guard veterans into an Impulsor, you are wasting their durability that they get innately, which is the biggest complaint for everyone
About Sword
in the
Bros.
Sword Brethrens. So why are you putting a Storm Shield 3 wound unit in an Impulsor that is what you put them in for transport to give durability and make them faster?
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of my thing is like, okay, you could do that, but they could do just as well on the walking, and you wouldn't even have to pay for the 100-point Impulsor to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could get there quicker, but really, if you're advancing, because we get rerollable advances, you're getting to the middle of the board on turn 2 anyway. So the thing
Term
is with the impulsors, with
Termies
the sword
cannot
brother.
go on Impulsor. Primaris non-gravis
Yep,
only.
yep, yep.
He just asked
But
another question, so figured I'd answer it.
gotcha. Yeah, I just was talking about the comparison
Yeah.
on taking them. So with that being said, I in a 2,000 point list or anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 point list, I honestly probably am not taking Blade Guard veterans anymore until they nerf assault terminators again or they buff them.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Remember, Terminators are now Assault Termies are now 2 points per model cheaper than Blade Guard. They
yep.
have the same stat line, actually better stat line, because Termies are 2+ innately. So they really have a 1+ save. They have the same Storm Shield, the same number of wounds. They can't transhuman, but we get the mini transhuman anyway, so you know, it's not that much different. Um, and they have a Thunderhammer instead of a Power Sword. So Blade Guard are fine,
Yep, they're
but
perfectly serviceable.
Termies are a little bit better. I think if I'm taking Blade Guard now, what I'm going to run them with is I'm going to take a 3-man for a cheap 105 points and plunk them on an objective and be annoying to kill. I think that's how I'm going to run them.
Now it was mentioned. Let's see here. I saw it just like Dylan said that you like the symmetry with the 3 5-man blade guard to hold center with the character support, and that's perfectly okay. So
Yeah.
like for me, like I'll take the most because I'm a tournament player. I play the most efficient list as possible. You can make Blade Guard veterans reasonably good. You can the there is an argument for the Blade Guard ancient to be able to give that. I personally don't take them, but a lot of people have had success with them. The models look really cool. Don't the really cool models.
They're not as cool
And
as Sword Bros, though.
But a lot of people don't want to play with the firstborn anymore because like the writing is on the wall.
Yeah.
We're gonna get one more edition out of them. Let's be honest here. So they're perfectly serviceable, but in an impulsor, I would not do it. Sword
So
Brethren are the way to go with them,
he
and a
mentions
lot of
he mentions the issue is once he drops them off, the sword bros die, but the blade guards survive and keep killing. Right. But part of the reason why, like generally speaking, when we're taking sword brethren in the impulsors, it's to be a trade unit. So they're gonna drop them off, kill something, and then if they die in return, that's just 4 more shock tactics points that we're gonna take when the next wave comes in and kills whatever killed the sword bros. That's why we run them like that. They are more fragile, but they're easily as deadly, if not more so. They can threaten a wider variety of units with their different loadouts. Um, so they're really a Swiss Army knife, honestly. Um, so you know, like Bob said, Blade Guard are fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but definitely at least give Sword Bros a fair shake at trying to run them in a MSU style list.
yeah. I mean, they fit into a specific list.
Yeah.
Um,
I still want to see if I can make them work as a foot slogging 10-man unit in a larger take and hold style list with other high threat units like Terminators and Centurions and maybe some Van Vets. I don't know. We got points for everything now, it seems like. It's like, oh, well, I've got all these things that I wanted in here. Oh, I still got 300 points. Cool. So yeah. Um, so Johnny says BGB are A tier, Sword Bros are S tier. Sword Bros are definitely S tier. I will agree with Art of War on that. I think they're crazy. They're crazy good. What's the consensus on Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, Terminators? I think Nicholas. I think we've already answered that. They're amazing. Um, all the Terminator types are good now. Actually, yeah, losing AOC hurt their durability on the non-Storm Shield ones, but that's okay. They're so cheap now. They're all 33 points a model. So it's really what flavor do you want? Do you want like more durable melee choppy guys? Take some assault terminators with thunderhammers and storm shields and toss a lightning claw or two in there for dealing with, cheap infantry. You can take the relic terminators and get chain fists, get like a chain fist or power fist on the sergeant. You can take regular termies and get a free missile launcher. They're all good. If you take relic termies, I would probably take the free heavy flamer on them because why not? So, um,
uh, question here. Just don't want to get in there. Revenant says, "Where can I throw a list to get your opinion on?" This is kind of wholesale answer for everybody. So the best place to get opinions would be in our Discord, which we will have in the description. If you're not already there, we have list sections for
for
500,
every yep,
1,000,
yep, all
yep,
the different
all the little
styles.
things.
Yeah,
But I will say that there is so many people in the Discord right now that give opinions and so many people looking for help. There's just no possible way that I can get answers to every single person. It's not. But 95% of the time, someone steps up to the plate and gives opinions on it. And then I try and answer as many as I can. But
yeah,
I work full time, salary, plus I have
yeah,
kids. So
yep.
I do what I can. So, but
But
that would be the
we have
best
a
place.
we have a great group of people who can answer questions and give great advice in our
Yep.
Discord as well. So, um, Johnny says as a noob, I just dislike having sword bros and their book-long weapon profile list. Yeah, they got they got a whole page just for themselves. They got so many options. And now we're gonna take almost all those options. So you get to remember, oh, I got 4 pyre pistols, I got 2 plasma pistols, oh, I got claws and hammers and what. So, um,
Neon Widow says, "What's your opinion on aggressors? I always thought they looked really cool, but are they worth the points? And how would I run them?" So actually, I bought 2 boxes of them.
they are a
One of my
cool 30 points per model now.
Yep. So I bought a unit. I'm going to run them in 5 in one of my iterations. I have to decide if I like this list better than my newer iteration of this list, but I'm not sure if it's going to provide me enough anti-tank. So remains to be seen yet if this is it. But the way I'm currently running it is Grimaldus follows them uh, to the center board to capture ultimate moment. So I have 5 of them. Got Crux Obsidian, and he's the champion of the feast on the sergeant. It's not going to be a revival trick with him, but with the 4 wounds, the higher toughness, and the feel no pain from Grimaldus, and potentially even a 5 plus if there's nothing better to give it to, you have a pretty durable center holding piece that is a small compact unit that you can get in the 6 inches of the center of the board for ults and be really annoying with that 18-inch bolt storm shots. So you're going to get the 6 shots from the bolt storms, and then the 3.5 average shots from the frag storm thing. So basically 9 to 10 shots each for 5 man. So you're looking at between 45 to 50 bolter shots. And if you're in tactical doctrine, or if you need to advance really quickly, you can use Emperor's Will and still fire with them at no penalty. They're a great way to make sure that you're capping and scoring the middle of the board. Now, there's been talk about the flamers. I don't like that because one of 2 reasons. First, I like the additional range of the bolt storm. I think that extra 6 inches is critical, especially if you're having uh, just auto reach, because for those that have the map in your mind, the center of the board is just auto reach of most deployment zones with that 12 inches and that flame. But if you have the bolt storm, you have range that you're going to be able to get those shots into your opponent. Plus, it has a lot of shots into the horde style list that I like. Now you're going to average out to the same amount of wounds with the math against like a guardsman equivalent um, with the flamestorm, but that's assuming they're in range. Um, and you have that threat range. The other thing is most people talk about is using the 2 CP strat to give them the blast, right? It's 2 CP that we probably do not have. Let's legitimate talk here. Most lists are going to be running between 0 and 3 CP to start, and we're using that on things like transhuman, devout push,
It's like the
what
fight
have you.
twice on the assault intercessors.
It's
It's not you're not going to have CP to use it, and if you do, maybe you should consider where you need to save that CP for an interrupt.
yeah, interrupt is a thing. So people make a lot of comparisons. That's another comparison that just drives me nuts now with Primaire Sword Brethren. We're like, well, you could just do it with the assault intercessors. It's the same thing, and you can fight twice. No, you're not fighting twice because you do not have the CP. And if you do have the CP, why do you have the CP? You made a mistake somewhere in your game that allows you to have the 2 CP. What you could have done was you could have devout push twice,
Yeah,
and that's way more impactful in my
yeah,
opinion in a game than one fight twice
yep,
on that, or getting blast on your flamers.
yep.
So
Uh,
that's
we
my
have
take
a
on it.
we have a super chat from the major. Thank you for answering questions. Love your channel and starting supporting you on Patreon the other week. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. We appreciate your support. This is why we do this, is to support you guys, to build a great community of Black Templar players, where we can trade ideas and talk and have fun, and play the army that we love. Thank you guys for all your support. Um, uh, Alta Mentra says a ton of people are going to be bamboozled into creating plasma pistol and power weapon sergeants that won't be usable in a quarter. Maybe. Here's the thing though. So with Sword Brethren, so the and I've customized a bit on mine, but the Lightning Claw guys and the the Thunderhammer, the default poses, and several other poses that come in the box are two-handed. That
Yep.
there's no pistol that the guy is holding. So I just put my Pyre pistols on the Thunderhammer and Lightning Claw guys because they're going to survive the longest anyway. And I think the Pyre pistol is worth keeping longer over the Plasma pistol. Um, so I don't have to worry about that because he's just I pay the points or put the the tick mark on it in this case on the list building, and then the dudes that I am going to swap out for some pyre pistols or plasma pistols or whatever. Honestly, most people are cool if you're like, listen, he doesn't have that gun. I didn't pay for it. I know my group doesn't care, and uh, at this point, like I have so many models. I have enough other models that I can just swap in a dude if that ever becomes the case.
Yeah.
So it might be a
That's
problem for like some tournaments, but especially the dudes that are like two-handed poses. We have plenty of sword bro kits that are two-handed poses. Just say they have it or
that's
say they don't. It's as easy as
yeah.
that.
That's the way to go. So no tournament organizer worth their salt is going to rule against you if you have a two-handed pose
Yeah,
or
because it's an
uh,
official pose for the model.
so
So
or there's even in the Sword Brethren kit. That's one of the great thing about the Sword Brethren kit is like the power pistols on the Thunderhammer and the Lightning Claw is just make sure you put your little pistol pouch on there. That's critical because then you could say it's just holstered.
yeah,
But then there is I think two because I just built a kit. I think there's two ways that you can build a plasma pistol armed power sword sword brother.
yeah,
There's one that you can do the Castellian style where he's holding the lantern in
yeah.
one of his hands and the power weapon in his other hand, and then there's other one where he's just kind of like eh. Or you could switch out the one from your Crusader squad and flip it over there too if you want to do it that way. So then you have a holstered plasma pistol, and that works. So like if
That
it ever
works.
changes, then you don't have to kill any
You
of
don't
your
have to.
models.
Yep. But Dakin asks, did we get a ruling on T-bones versus things that pierce, ignore wound effects? Okay, so this is my opinion on it. And I've talked to some other people that I know that are also very rule savvy. The wording on the FAQ says it that if you ignore wounds or ignore things that ignore wounds, that includes things that reduce damage by a stated amount. Tannhauser Bones does not do that. It reduces it to a stated amount. Very subtle but key difference. You're not reducing it by a stated amount because it reduces all damage to 1. So if it's a damage 2, you reduced it by 1. If it's a damage 4, you reduced it by 3. So therefore, Tannhauser's Bones, technically it's around that raw. Is that what GW intends? Who knows? doesn't doesn't seem like it, but based on the fact that the -1, but also the -1 damage stuff is a lot of times either something that's just a rule built in. Tannhauser's Bones is a relic that we're paying a CP for, so maybe that's why they specifically put in reduced by a stated amount instead of because they could have easily just said anything that changes the characteristic of the damage is ignored. That would have gotten around both, but they didn't. They said reduced by a stated amount. Um, so, in my opinion, it works.
I take the opposite stance because I play conservative on it. I
I don't
would
play in a lot of
rather
tournaments, so
I would rather not take something and avoid an issue similar to the honor venomant and accept any challenge combo. I opted to not do it, and I also checked with tournament organizers. I haven't specifically asked anyone the Tannhauser's Bone combo yet, but I have seen there's been posts out there in the ether that people have talked to them, and specifically the LVO tournament, they are ruling against it. So they're saying that it is ignored, so it doesn't work. Tannhauser and Bones does not work, and I get the impression that is the way tournament organizers are going to be going, especially when you get like LVO rules against it. They're probably the rest of the tournament is probably going to follow suit.
Yeah.
So now there has nothing been anything official from Games Workshop as far as that goes, but if the community is pretty self-policing, and if LVO ruled against it, then
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, raw rules as written, it ignores it, or it Tannhauser's wins because it is not reducing the damage by a stated amount. But is that the intention? No way of knowing. And I
yeah.
could see why, large tournaments would rather play it safe than sorry. So, so yeah, I
Realistically,
think
it doesn't come into effect very often anyway.
no, the odds of it coming into effect are pretty low. I'm not going to LVO. Bob might try to go to LVO.
I'm not gonna
You're
make it.
not gonna make it this
That's
year.
next weekend.
Yeah.
Next year it's on my docket, but unfortunately, my store that I run is running a little low on people right now, and I can't get away. So, what
Axe
else is new in
Massacre.
retail?
Yeah, right. Axe Massacre. We got a few minutes left here before we stop, so we're trying to answer as many of these questions as possible. Axe Massacre asks, "What's your take on relic termies? Are they just as viable?" Yes. We actually, if you'll scroll backwards in the stream a little ways, we did talk about termies. All the variety of termies are viable now. So, is the short answer on that one. So scroll back. We can talk about it a little bit more in depth. A little bit ago. Do, 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 do,
Daniel
do.
Johnson asked, "Do you think we'll be okay not running Terminators or run Sorboros and Vanguard Vets, or Terminators an auto include?" No, they're not an auto include. We do have a lot of units that are applicable that fulfill that role. We talked about Sword Brother and Bladeguard Veteran will also fill that role. Uh, we talk from the most efficiency sake. Terminators are very, very efficient now, so you
Yeah,
can take them. But in 6 months, maybe they're going to be nerfed, and
yeah.
who knows? So
Bart's
yes, you can
asking,
do it.
are Sterngard vets the new? A few different channel that Sterngard vets are the new hot thing. Can BT make use of them, or just stick with van vets? So yeah, you can take a couple of. I think I forget how many heavy weapons per. I, I know you can take two, but I don't know if you have to take a 10-man or not. It's been so long since I looked at Sterngard datasheet. You can take at least one heavy weapon per 5-man. You might be able to take two. Uh, so Art of War was talking about, you know, three combi meltas and two multi meltas in a 100-point squad. Yeah, I mean that's solid. Uh, I'd rather spend 35 points more and get Eradicators with a multi melta. um, but it's definitely a thing you can do. You could put them in a pod. You're going to struggle, I think, getting those regular meltas in range. Um, there's also the Stern Guard Flamer meme that unit that I did with Beast Pyre and a heavy flamer and stuff. So I don't think that they're bad. They are greatly improved over where they were, which was absolute trash. Are they worth taking in a competitive list? No, I don't think so. In
Yeah,
a
there's better options.
There's better options. I think in a casual game, they're probably fine.
Yeah. So yeah, to kind of just build on that a little bit is if you're playing like the firstborn, if you prefer the firstborn, like a lot of people do, it's a great unit that you can do gets for some fire support.
Mhm.
Because obviously using the primaries. So I think there's legitimate unit now, not having to pay for all that stuff.
Yep. Beyond the Grave asks, greetings from Sweden. Any tips on how to beat Imperial Guard? That combo with mortal wounds and no saves against wounds is insane. And two tanks can kill an impulsor and its cargo in one turn. Um, well, don't forget, we're going to be taking up hold. So we're going to get a invulnerable save against most of their shots. I'm not sure what mortal wound combo. I think you're talking about I think it's the Kasserkin, where they can like
Yep.
the order or whatever. Honestly, they don't have the volume of fire to be able to trigger 6 mortal wounds on everybody. This is not going to happen. And it's a very like specific combo that requires a lot of investment. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. But we're going to beat guard the same way we're going to beat Iron Hands, which is we're going to take anti-tank, and we're going to win on objectives.
Yep.
Their infantry is still squishy as hell.
So I don't typically pimp out other people's channels, but there was a good battle report that was going on right now. I think it was posted last night. Tabletop Titans kind of played the new Imperial Guard against Harlequins, and you can kind of see how squishy those guard are in reality in that. So if you want to take a look at that and kind of see, they use a lot of those combos, Born Soldiers, Kazarkin. Um, Black Templars have a couple of advantages. We can play MSU trade style, so we don't really care if that impulsor dies to this combo. Um, Even potentially the things that are inside, because we have multiple small units. That's the point of the list. If something dies, okay, we have got 15 more units just like it. We're typically also a lot faster than Imperial Guard players are, so we can get to the middle of the board and in range of all of our weapons much quicker. Or you can go with the body heavy, which we've been talking about. That probably is going to be a legitimate take. So if you have a ton of bodies, good luck getting through all of that stuff, even with all those mortal wounds and shots. So you're just not going to be able to kill enough. And I mean, when you're running between 70 and maybe even 100 bodies on the board,
Yeah.
Space Marine, that's pretty
Yeah.
decent.
All right, last couple questions here before we sign off. Badakin asks Eradicators, so they get their upgrades for free. What loadout is best? Heavy Melta, obviously. I'm gonna take the what you call it, the multi Melta, because even though it's mathematically basically the same as heavy Melta dude, the extra shots help account for bad dice. Um, so um, so yeah, so I'm gonna take the multi Melta along with it, and then Nicholas asks, you mentioned that Firstborn really only have one more edition. As someone who is just now really building Templar, should I avoid the Firstborn units, including Termies and Vanguard vets?
Depends on how competitive you want to be. So most editions are between 4 and 5 years long, typically, unless you're 8th edition, and then you're like, oh crap, we need to fix things real fast.
Yeah,
But even if it's only one more year that we get them before they get legend, and this is not like proof, but it is like a very strong indicator that this is going to be the last hurrah. So we're 4 to 5 years away now. If you don't want to make that purchase and make that decision, okay, I wouldn't fault you for it. I'm a competitive player. I want to put my best foot forward, so I'm going to buy what I'm going to buy to give myself the best chance to win. And I mean, I have enough disposable income to be able to make that choice.
we're also both veteran players. We've had Terminators for a long
Yeah,
time, so
yeah,
they're already in our collection.
yeah. All I'm doing is snapping off arms and putting other arms back on for me. So basically, all my purchases now are Primaris. So there's basically my answer. If you got them, use them.
Yep,
If you want to put the money into them to help you be most efficient, do it.
yep.
But I wouldn't fault you for not, and you could still field a competitive list without doing so.
Last thing I want to touch on. Mitzfit says definitely assault melta is better. Better to hit on threes. The math says otherwise. Mathematically, even hitting on fours, heavy melta are going to deal more damage on average than assault melta. That's why
Because of the +2.
because of the plus two damage is enormous. So yeah, you can do the math for yourself if you like, but I've done it, and trust me, it is better to hit on fours. And then when they don't move or don't need to move, they're just flat out better. Redemptors 1, 2, or 3. If you're taking them, take 2.
Yep.
Um,
Last one, time. We have a video that's going to be edited here shortly, and you'll get your answer to your question in that one. We are redoing
the top
the
10. We have the top 10 best units in the codex to consider in every list. So. So yeah,
Oh,
awesome. Well, thank you guys, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, those of you who gave us super chats. Thank you for joining us and hanging out. This was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the next one, which will be on. Uh, let's see, the 19th of February. So we'll definitely pop a notification up for the stream when we get closer. And hope everyone has a great rest of their weekend. And until next time, keep on crusading. We'll see you guys later.
thanks, my